Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Football Over Family. This is episode 3. We've decided to title it Let Russ Cook because of all of the Russell Wilson news and rumors. We're also going to be covering the NFC East, the AFC West, and then the NFC West. So
That's
it's
a
a
lot.
jam-packed episode.
It's a lot, but it's necessary. We got to get through some of these divisions. We got big stuff coming up. Free agency cuts are already starting to happen. This week was a big cut week initially going on here. So a lot
Definitely.
to cover, a lot to go.
Lots of cuts. So we will definitely get started. We do want to let you all know that we have locked down a better schedule for both Gavin and myself. We are looking to do a consistent posting of our YouTube podcast, because this is a podcast that we record live and then post onto YouTube. Posting on Mondays around 11 a.m. Eastern, so that if you're on the travel grind, on the West Coast or whatever it is, maybe you can throw that on in your car. But, lunch breaks are a thing, so that's a good time.
Yeah, I work weekends typically, so it works out for both Colin and I to do it this way, but also front of the week. I know everyone gets there and you're sitting there at your computers working, catching up on emails or whatever it may be. So throw us on in the background, give it a listen.
Yeah, definitely. It is a video podcast, but you are not missing anything as far as video side. You
I
can
mean,
totally just
you're
listen in.
missing a little something. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
about over there, but
Okay, sure. Yeah. My hat's cooler than your jersey.
hey.
So yeah, we're also going to be posting clips on our Instagram. All of our little handles and titles for our channels are on the bottom left of the corner here, or the screen here. So you can follow along with us there. We'll be posting our clips from the best moments of the episodes throughout the next week after the episode has been posted on the Monday. And then as far as these live recordings go, this one's happening on a Sunday. I expect a lot of ours will happen on Sundays, because again, he works weekends, and the best time to do that is at the end of his work week. Some of them might also just happen when we maybe have 2 hours during a random Thursday. So if you want to have the chance to follow along with us live, set up your notifications to allow you to see that whenever we go live, and then join the chat and come hang out.
Yeah, no doubt. And for the clips, by the way, those will be on Instagram. And we do like 2 to 4 clips a week. I might even do more. If people start to like the clips and want more clips, I might give some more. But right now I'm sticking 2 to 4, not to flood too much out there. So let us know if you like the clips.
For sure. I've been loving those clips. I think it's really fun to to get people to see it's 1 minute clips. Get people to see a snapshot of what we're talking about, and then to remember myself, what were we talking about that brought those random things up? Because I think that's how a lot of our segments are actually going to be born, is from things like that, where Gavin has a hot take or he challenges me to some sort of game. We've already made both of those into, running gags on the show. So it's definitely going to be things that I think the clips are going to bring up some really funny moments and cool stuff.
I definitely agree. I mean, with how much there is to talk about and how fast-paced the NFL is, it's nice to take a break and be like, okay, let's just debate something quickly. Yeah. And those are easy things to just talk about. So.
And if you're wondering, we are brothers, so this is the way most of our conversations go. We start talking about one thing, and then we'll randomly segue into a 5-minute conversation about something completely unrelated, but
and
totally
I'm usually right,
about.
But if I'm wrong and I find out I'm wrong, I'll still completely deny it and just be very stubborn. And basically, I end up being right.
Yeah, if he's not right, he finds a way to make me still wrong.
Well,
so, yeah. Even if he can't be right, then I can't be right either. It has to happen that way. All right. So there is a lot to talk about. We have 12 teams to preview for the upcoming offseason. We also have, we'll talk a little bit about those divisions' performances this year. We will talk about their cap rooms, all of those good things. We also have a bunch of cuts that happened over the last week. We didn't even get to talk about a couple of the cuts that happened before the Carson Wentz trade, but we will get to those. There was a couple of important negotiations that happened around the league. Some things to talk about there as far as what were they renegotiating their contracts for, what was the plan, and then obviously let Russ cook, all of the rumors coming out with Russell Wilson, and then the most recent Deshaun Watson stuff as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to touch. Last time on episode 2, we discussed how there was various rumors on the cap. No new rumors. The numbers still look the same as they were a week ago, which were still kind of unsettled at the time. So it's looking more and more clear like it's going to be 181.
Yeah, and I think the only chance that it goes up is if some of the money from this most recent Disney deal with the NFL agreeing to a new deal with Disney to both continue Monday Night Football on ESPN, ESPN owned by Disney, and then also to re-enter ABC as the one of the Super Bowl broadcasts. They're back into the lottery of that. It's a cycle, not a lottery. So ABC is going to be back into the running for which Super Bowl is on which network every single time. So there is a lot of money. It was about $2.4 billion or
Yeah.
something like that. So,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
yearly. That's yearly money.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
I think it'll probably end up staying the same if I'm being completely honest. And then the
Yeah.
next year will be inflated. It'll be like
That's exactly.
210 or something.
It'll bounce back next
Yeah.
year, and it will bounce back to the way that it was trending the last 5 years, where it's going up by maybe 21 million a year. So if you remember what the cap was last year, it was about 198 million. This year we're down to 181 through 188 is kind of like the range that people are expecting now. So that's down 10 million, but expect it to go up maybe 30 to 40 million next year, up to the 220 range where it would have been on trend to be
And
already.
I, and that's why I think it's important that there were so many cuts that we are going to talk about. Let's just jump to the two renegotiations
Sure.
that happened, and that way we can just get those out of the way because
Yeah.
they kind of both things signal both renegotiations signals like a new step for both franchises.
Yeah, I'll talk about Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's renegotiation was Cameron Hayward basically taking a $7 million pay change, roster bonuses being or roster bonuses being converted to signing bonuses, which means they can pay that money out over extended amount of years, and that money saves them that renegotiation saved them $7 million on their cap. If you weren't aware, the Steelers are in a horrible place as far as cap goes. They are expected to make many renegotiations and cuts. A lot of people talking about whether or not Big Ben would even be around because he has a 40 million cap hit. So
And
yeah,
now he will renegotiate, and they'll continue. This is the first step. It
yeah,
was it
and
was getting
so
Hayward done because he was easier, and now we got Ben, and we trust his arm. I saw that article come out,
yeah,
so
yeah. And I think a lot of this is building towards the potential that they could be one of the teams trying to bring in JJ Watt to put the Watt brothers together. Obviously, it signifies that the defensive line is willing to work with that if that's the
hmm
case. If this isn't for a move on JJ Watt, then it's just the team trying to get under the cap and, be healthy enough to play a season.
yeah, I don't think he'll end up there if I'm being honest. But
It'll be hard. It'll be
um,
hard. He would have to take a significant pay cut.
here's the thing: does JJ want to play with his two brothers, or does he want to win a Super Bowl? I think that's what it comes down to, and I think Watt's one of those guys that I think he wants a shot at a title. I don't think he.
Totally there, yeah.
I think at the end of his career he can sign a 1 year deal and play with the boys for 1 year and it'll be whatever. I think
Yeah.
he's like I got 2 high level years in me still. I can be role player ish in year 3 and I'll sign with the bros. You know.
Yeah, and we'll talk about him a little bit more in a few moments when we get into some of our cuts and other things. So the other renegotiation, the Carolina Panthers renegotiated the contract of their center Matt Paradis, and that one's going to save them about basically $5 million. Same
Hey,
situation.
deep draft in terms of centers this year, and not to
Well,
mention, dude's 32 years old.
I
Like
mean, he's taking a pay cut. He's not getting out of town. I think that's
I know, but what it does do is it gives them the opportunity to draft a second or third round guy in the two salaries what he would have had the
yeah.
cap will mix, and they have
Well,
a void option next year, right, in his contract.
yeah. I think that the way that the restructure actually ends up going is even if they do have a void option, they still would owe him the dead cap from this
This year.
renegotiation.
Yeah.
But they also made a couple other moves. They released Stephen Weatherly and Trey Boston, which saved them a bunch more money. I think the total of the renegotiation and the two cuts was about 13 or 14 million saved for this year, and a lot of people are thinking that maybe that's a move at either Russ or Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson being the more likely one, just because the Russell Wilson said who he wants to go to, and Carolina wasn't on that list.
Yeah.
But a lot
Tough.
of this belief is that
Tough.
imagine a team where you have Christian McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel's a free agent, but they still have DJ Moore. They still have I can't remember the other wide receiver. Robbie Anderson. They
Yeah.
still have
Big
Robbie
play.
Anderson, and so it's a team where they could be making a move to be an immediate playoff team with a Deshaun Watson addition, So will it happen? Obviously, who knows? But it's a great place for them to start. They didn't need to save too much money. They don't have a lot of players to re-sign, renegotiate, to free agents to sign. They're just making moves to make moves right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, like, if he isn't available and you're clearing some cap space, hey, it's not a bad year to do that because there are a lot of guys that you're going to get at a discount this year, honestly, because there's going to be a lot of guys that 1 year prove-it contract's going to be all over the NFL this offseason. So
and if you can sign somebody to a 3-year deal for just a little over their 1 year offers, you might get a good steal. You might get a great steal.
Cutting 2 extra guys that are on the end of their days anyway with your franchise is not a bad idea.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move into some other cuts. I'll start it off. The Atlanta Falcons cut both Ricardo Allen and Allen Bailey, 2 defensive veterans on their team they were just kind of past their prime or past their cost, I think is the best way to put that. They are definitely going to find another place to play next season at like a vet $1 or $2 million deal, but no surprise there.
Save over $10.75 million against the cap this year by cutting those 2 guys.
And they were tight on the cap. They still are. So it's really necessary for them.
Arthur Smith, new head coach, he's in here trying to clear some cap, get guys that fit his scheme, what he wants to do. And me and Colin here have made a list of potential cuts by team, and those were numbers 1 and 2 for the Falcons, and they went right ahead and did that quickly.
Definitely. All right, and then I think the more surprising one for me was Green Bay releasing Ricky Wagner.
Interesting.
Big old Rick Wagner. That team is not a team that I thought of was going to get rid of one of their better offensive linemen, especially in a year where they're about to lose, apparently, Corey Linsley, their center, who basically said out in a tweet this year, I don't think I'm going back to Green Bay, so I'll snap for somebody else.
He said
he was open to it. He just said it doesn't sound like they want me back, which is a shocker. He's a top 5 center.
Deep draft at center this year. I know that's weird to say, but like I've been reading a lot about it, and they're like, this is different than most center years. Yeah, you don't have guards converting to centers. You don't have guards converting to centers. You have centers. And so that's why people are interested.
Usually there's 1 or 2, and that's not the case this year. There's probably a good 6 or 7 that will go in the first 3 rounds.
Packers also let go of Christian Kirksey this year. Yep. That was this week, $6 million saved for them. Mm-hmm. He played well, but he was never he wasn't an everyday or every down.
They brought in Kirksey to fix their run game issue. It didn't work. Yeah, that's the only thing. Like if you're Christian Kirksey and they bring you the run statistics and they said this was supposed to be your difference maker, you just kind of have to say,
I can do it.
That's okay. I'll go get paid $4 million to be on some other team for 1 year.
Yeah, and so I thought actually for me, I don't know, the podcast people do not know this, but one of my favorite players all the way back in fantasy football is Deshaun Jackson. My man's. I was playing one of our good friends, Will, in fantasy football, and I needed 12 points to win, so 40 yards, 60 yards and a touchdown. First play of the game was Monday night. It was the Washington football team, different name at the time, versus the Eagles. Play action, big hits, Deshaun for an 80-yard touchdown to start the game, and Deshaun's all going in backwards into the end zone talking crap. My boy got cut. He's getting cut from multiple teams, traded around. He's at the end of his career. Still, big cap savings for them. What was it, like $9 million? $9 million.
And they've already said we will be releasing Alshon Jeffrey. That's just one of those June 1st designations, and that'll save them another $2.5 million. So it's a new wide receiver corp for them.
But with that being said, Deshaun Jackson, will win a Super Bowl next year. That's going down.
Another wide receiver that was released was Tyrell Williams from the Las Vegas Raiders. He was never able to make his impact. He had an injury that basically just kept him out of the entire year. And when you have Henry Ruggs and you're trying to make a lateral move to a Nelson Aguilar, who you just rediscovered his best play.
Good leader last year. Very good leader last year.
Why not? Tyrell Williams versus Nelson Aguilar. For you probably save money on Nelson Aguilar. So good job by the Raiders. I think that was a smart move. Some other wide receiver moves that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, the Titans, my squad. We let go of Adam Humphries. Very disappointing. We essentially paid him $12 million for about 40 receptions, 600 yards, and 4 touchdowns. A lot of money for not a lot of production. He was pretty much gone most of the season after a concussion this last push, and even in the deep playoff run we had to the AFC Championship game, he wasn't healthy that year either. So he was a big time cut. Post June 1st would have actually saved us an additional $2.5 million, but the $4.75 million against the cap this year that we save will be helpful in signing maybe a Corey Davis, a Jonnu Smith back, trying to keep some of our guys. So he was the guy we were going to cut, and he went first.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm a Buccaneers fan, so Adam Humphries has a warm place in my heart. He signed from the Bucs to the Titans, and we also, like we talked about earlier, got to say hi to him. So it was a nice, passing him on to you, and then to see his career just go kind of downhill pretty fast.
He's only 27.
He had a lot of injuries for you guys, and I felt really bad because for us he was almost like an Iron Man. So It was like the opposite. It was like he got overloaded on hits, and then he just went to the Titans and it all piled up on him.
Yeah, I mean, his most famous play as a Titan is he caught that touchdown against the Chiefs to win.
Yeah.
Not the playoff game. That was Eric
The
Decker.
other game.
But the other game, because the Titans always play the Chiefs close. Fact.
But yeah, so you mentioned this before. You think that these are the starting moves to maybe make a run at J.J. Watt to replace Jadeveon Clowney, who was supposed to have been your edge rusher last year?
I think the biggest thing to note is why not wait till June 1st? If it's a cap year where it's so tight and you need that $2.5 million, we just were talking about Alshon Jeffrey being cut over $2.25 million. Why not wait another 3 months and get $2.5 million? But they're cutting them now because it's like they're in an arms race for J.J. Watt. I guarantee it. That's what it is. Or they're trying to re-sign one of the guys that are currently in the room. If they're cutting him, they're like, hey, Corey, we just freed up another 4.75 we can get you.
That's actually what I was going to say, is I feel like it's more of a move to let maybe some of your other wide receivers know, or, another free agent wide receiver know, hey, this is how serious we are. Because, I mean, you could sign him and be over the cap for the next 3 months and totally be fine. But you could keep Adam Humphries and then sign J.J. Watt for as much money as you want and cut Adam Humphries later. The cap, I mean, the Saints are $90 million under, or over. It doesn't matter.
March. It restarts in March.
Yeah, I mean, but still, I think it's one of those things where you could easily make those moves a little later down the road, and it wouldn't matter too much.
That's why I think it's J.J. Watt will be signed by the Titans in the next week, or they're using that money for Corey Davis. Like, hey, we can negotiate with you now.
Yeah, I get you.
So I think that's where it's really going, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. So a couple other ones really quick. We won't talk too much about it, but Tyler Eifert's contract was voided. The additional year option was denied by the team. That saved them about $5 million.
How good was he pre-injury? My gosh.
Yeah, and I mean, even post-injury, he was still good. He just kept getting horrible injuries.
Remember, he was getting picked at the top of fantasy football drafts. He was scoring so many touchdowns.
He was the Kelsey before the Kelsey.
Gosh.
Duke Johnson and Nick Martin both were released from the Houston Texans.
Continue to clean house.
Just a whole, restart the entire franchise type of deal there. Interesting for Nick Martin, I thought. I wasn't thinking that that's a team that can afford to lose probably their second best lineman.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually funny. I actually know his wife. I worked with her at USA Football when I was in Indianapolis, and
cool.
And so I actually saw her Instagram story about him getting cut, and he didn't seem too sad. We'll just go with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
he didn't seem too sad. He seemed all right.
It's an interesting locker room,
Yeah, I do know for a fact he wants to go play with his brother.
Would make sense. So the other one to note is Jarrell Casey was released.
Big cap savings.
Huge cap savings. And I think this is a release that everybody saw happening the minute he was traded for, because it was basically like the Brock Osweiler deal, where you were just eating a huge cap salary because your team doesn't have any reason to spend that type of money.
Think about how much of a fleece this was. Titans and John Robinson trade Jarrell Casey and his contract, which was a $13 million cap hit last year, over to the Broncos for a 6th-round pick. What do? They trade that 6th-round pick for Desmond King midseason. Fleeced.
I mean,
he played no snaps really for the Broncos.
He was hurt. He got hurt almost
right away. But I'm saying, overall, we win the trade without question.
For sure. All right, and that's all of the roster moves to note. I think the other two things that people want to talk about, and us and the media, we'll go with Deshaun Watson first, just because I think that one's quicker. The situation has not changed. This is the way. Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston.
Yeah.
He has let Houston know. He has met with their new coach, and he has said, "I do not want to be here, please."
Yeah.
And I bet right about now he's wishing he didn't have that no trade clause in his contract.
Can you think of the last time a quarterback sat out and then was traded?
A quarterback, no.
Carson
Oh.
Palmer is your answer.
Oh, that's a good one.
He sat out a full
Yeah.
season. Then the Raiders traded for him, and he played pretty well. He played very well until he
I would
got
agree.
hurt.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see how this one goes, because the Bengals were willing to go, all right, fine, 1 year, we'll just keep your money off the books. You're sitting out, whatever. And then they're like, you know what, man, we could really use a first round pick for that guy.
Yeah.
And so I want to see how long this standoff goes. But
I'm curious too.
If I'm the Texans, I'm thinking to myself, man, I could get like a loot for this guy. So like, I don't know. Give me a loot. I don't know how long I can just sit there and wait on that.
Yeah. For me, I think it's one of those things where if he's going to hold out, trade him.
Yeah.
If he's going to hold out, trade him.
And if you're already clearing the team, trade him.
Restart. Yeah, you just restarted your entire team. There is nothing in your team. Everything is gone except for some players and your owner. Just start it over.
You're getting crushed in the media. It's like just do this guy what he wants. Like just
it would almost have been a perfect 1-2 if they released J.J. Watt and allowed Deshaun Watson to seek a trade.
Yeah, and if it's different from trading him and allowing him to seek the trade.
Yeah.
Like if you allow him the option to go do it and he finds something suitable and then all of a sudden dialogue opens up with a team and it works out, that's awesome. But if you just say no, you can't even look, like all it does is make you look more bad, make you look worse.
Yes, I agree.
More bad.
More bad for sure.
More bad.
Title of the episode, more bad.
More bad. Okay.
Breaking more bad.
More bad blood.
Okay, let's move on. Russell Wilson is the other one. I think this is the most recent, probably the most talked about in the media over the last 4 or 5 days. Russell Wilson says he loves Seattle. He is not demanding a trade. He will stay in Seattle and happily play. But if the team wants to trade him, well, he would like to go to 4 teams. And there were I think the most notable were the Raiders and the Saints. I don't think the other two were really talked about too much.
Yeah, I mean, playing for John Gruden, they worked very closely with one another when they were doing a lot of ESPN stuff for like Gruden's QB camp and stuff. And obviously John Gruden's a very notable personality.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun franchise. They haven't even played a home game with fans yet in this stadium because of COVID-19. But I think that I could see him coming here. Sorry, I live in Las Vegas. For those of you that do not know, I live in Las Vegas, and so I could see him coming here.
And the Bears. I forgot the Bears. Also.
Yeah, but no one cares. He's not going to go there.
Kidding me, dude? Did you see somebody did why Nick Foles is perfect for the Pete Carroll offense, and it was just like 18 highlights of Nick Foles handing the ball off? That was funny.
Carroll doesn't even do that from the 1 yard line, so why are we acting like he's going to hand the ball off?
That's very true.
Hey, so I'll really quickly, to add some expert knowledge to this, I worked for the Seattle Seahawks in football operations in 2016. Whoa. I know you know that, but for anyone that may be watching, I did work there. Russ was the type of guy, and I worked with the players and the coaching staff. Russ was the type of guy that all the players respected him through and through every single moment. When he walked in the room, he had everyone's attention. But at the same time, he wasn't the guy that was down there playing ping pong with the rookies. And he wasn't the guy, he knew his role going in. He was more quietly sitting outside, doing his own thing, showing up on time for workouts, meeting rooms. He wasn't like the best friend teammate. He was like the leader. And I think that he's been looking for with John Schneider and Pete Carroll is a chance where he is the leader, but also he picks who he leads. Sure. And I think that's the big thing that he's looking for. He's been the leader. He made that Dwayne Brown trade happen with The Texans.
Yeah, he just wants to be hit less. I mean, and doesn't everyone?
But he made that happen. He tweeted at him, and when Brown went on the trade block and was like, "Big fella, we want you," and he made that thing actually happen. I think we're going to see more of that with him because the Seahawks don't want what's happening with the Texans and Watson to be their future. The Seahawks know that there are very few quarterbacks in this game that are better than Russell Wilson, and they don't have a chance of winning a Super Bowl if they draft a guy this year or if they trade for someone more than they would with Russell leading that offense this year.
And I think one of the things that's hard for teams to do is let go of the chance of winning a Super Bowl. Are you actually a contender? Like for me, we'll talk about this in a few moments, in 20 minutes or so.
Do you think Denver Broncos?
I don't think so, but we'll talk about that.
No,
we'll talk about that. I know, but 1 second, let me finish my thought first. Like the Denver Broncos need to just blow it up, right? Like sometimes you just have to blow it up. We talked about the Texans.
It's already blown up.
Well, I mean, it's not though. They're not giving up on Drew Lock. But like the Texans, give up on Deshaun Watson being your quarterback. He wants to leave. Blow it up. You have no chance now, right? He's the only thing. If Russell Wilson leaves the Seahawks, they have no shot. They have no shot. They have a horrible offensive line. Their defense is in shambles, and whatever isn't going into free agency, their starting corners and their second best linebacker. They have no edge rush, really. All they have is Bobby Wagner. That's it. That's their defense right now. I mean, there's Jamal Adams as well, but he's just an edge rusher. So
I think what you saw was the Seahawks made a couple big moves, and they made moves to the wrong position groups over the last few years. I mean, trading for Dunlap as a rental for the half season, that was
great.
Move. That was great. But trading,
he's $14 million in the cap for.
I know.
Yeah.
But trading for a guy like Adams instead of trading for offensive line help is what Russ is like.
Exactly.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
But so you get what I'm saying. I'm saying the Seahawks without Russell Wilson are no longer a contender.
No.
He makes that offense.
They're the worst team in the division, and it's already close. Or they would be the worst team in the division far and away, and it's already close to them being the worst team in the division.
Well, his ability to throw the moon ball with those wide receivers, their tough catch abilities are incredible.
Tyler Lockett's one of the most underappreciated wide receivers.
Absolutely,
in the NFL,
I
no
love
doubt.
Tyler Lockett,
and I think that Russell is key to keeping DK on a leash, if you will. He keeps DK calm.
Sure, I would agree.
I think he's the type of quarterback. Quarterbacks can do that.
He's the type of quarterback that he's willing to put up with a little bit of frustration and be like, "Hey, it's going to be okay.
But also,
I'm going to throw you the ball. I'm going to throw you the ball."
Dude, let him be frustrated. That guy eats. And you saw how it worked, and they try to force it to him. Pick six next time. DK
Troy Hill, free agent. We'll talk about him later.
All right, so we're gonna jump now into breaking these divisions down. We did the AFC East in episode 2, and we took a long time on it because it was our first time running through it. But we're gonna kind of go through these a little bit quicker. Yeah. With that being said, we're gonna knock out the NFC East, the AFC West, and the NFC West, and we're gonna do it in we're gonna try to stick to about 10 minutes to 15 per team. Try to go as fast as we can.
Well, not per team, per division.
Per division, excuse me. Sorry about that. So we're gonna jump right into NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys. Yep. Actually, we're gonna really quickly, very shortly, recap each episode. So, each division season. So, wow. Okay.
It was okay. It's okay. You got there.
Been a long weekend. All right. So, NFC East. Basically, you had the Dak Prescott injury that kind of shook the entire season for all 4 of these teams. You had the whole Dwayne Haskins fiasco for Washington football team. Mm-hmm. You had Carson Wentz getting benched and all this nonsense.
Saquon Barkley tearing his ACL.
Getting hurt. It was a huge changing of the guard for this division. Meanwhile, you just know the only negative thing we said about the Cowboys and about the Giants were injuries. Daniel Jones played good enough to give some people some hope. That Giants defense played well.
The Giants defense played incredible.
Yeah, very good. And imagine if they were just in better positions throughout the season. It was one of those seasons where 6-10 won the division.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's wild. That's never happened.
And then the team that won the division, the Washington football team, also played incredible against the to-be Super Bowl champion Buccaneers. Taylor Heineke was an absolute show to watch on that playoff game.
We saw that out of him, though, that 2 or 3 games in Carolina, though. We saw he
And
can play.
in this season, he had a couple of games where he came in after whether it was Kyle Allen or Dwayne
Alex
Haskins
Smith.
or Alex Smith that went out of the game, and he came in and he performed, and everybody's
Can,
like,
hold
"Yo,
on.
four can play, four
You
can
just
play."
you just talked about four starting quarterbacks for a team that won its division at 6-10 and
I
played
know.
the Buccaneers harder than the Chiefs did.
Yep.
Let's just realize that the Washington football team is a better football team than their record indicated. If they had
Yep.
stable quarterback play throughout the season and
Talk about a
maybe
good defense.
yeah, talk about good defense. Both them and the Giants play very well. The Cowboys defense dumpster fire. They get Dak back this year, whether it's
Yeah.
tag or extension. They're going to
It's
be they're probably win the division if we're being
it's pretty
honest.
wild to look at this division because I think for me the craziest thing is you have the Eagles and the Cowboys who have probably two of the worst defenses as an entire unit in the NFL. I mean, obviously the Eagles have like a guy like Fletcher Cox who's incredible, but their secondary is an absolute nightmare. And then you have the Cowboys who have maybe some good guys, but also they're all pretty old or they're young guys that aren't performing enough. And their defense was absolutely torched, which is why you had Dak Prescott breaking records with a team that was like 1-3 at a point. So it's crazy that these teams are on opposite ends. Where the Washington football team has one of the most impressive defensive lines I think I've ever seen. Like
Kerrigan
that
might not
defensive.
be there next year though.
Was that?
I don't know if Kerrigan will be there.
No, but he doesn't even need to be. They have 4 first-round draft picks starting on their offensive line. Like, it's over.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say next year is going to be a fun ride with this division. Like, I don't know who's going to win. I don't know what's going to happen.
An 8-8 team might be the winner again.
But also, I wouldn't be surprised if a team broke through and was good.
Yeah.
They all 4 teams have some upside. So
yeah.
And anyway,
to start that off, the Cowboys, the first team in this division, are a team that could be probably the most likely to pop off with Dak Prescott returning if he does, or if they do some sort of tag and trade with Russell Wilson, which is the 4th team that was mentioned by Russell Wilson. But
a tag and trade would be wild.
If you have a chance to have Dak Prescott over Russell Wilson, and we'll talk about this later too, probably, I think I would still just take Dak. I mean, he's young, he's good, and he probably will do fairly well for your team.
If you're talking about cookie cutters, these are the 2 closest guys you could switch. I mean, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, and Russell Wilson are like
100%.
the
And
3 closest dudes.
Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, they're all kind of similar. Really good arms, very mobile. Aaron Rodgers is one of the most mobile quarterbacks. Don't try and take that away from him. And Pat Mahomes was the leading rusher for the Chiefs.
I don't know. I
for
just
like
meant
half
like,
of
I
their
just meant
games.
like play style. Those 3 guys.
Yeah, play style different.
Mahomes
But that's
and Aaron Rodgers.
yeah.
That's all.
Aaron
That's
Rodgers and Mahomes can hold their own in the pocket way more than Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott. I agree. Okay, so the Cowboys, they have 19 million cap room coming in at our projected 181. So that's compared to a lot of the NFL, that's a lot of money.
They're doing well.
Yeah, they obviously have Dak Prescott, who's going to immediately destroy that entire cap space.
Yeah.
His contract is likely to be about 40 million if they retag him, and if they don't retag him, they probably try to sign him to some sort of deal like Pat Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, where it's going to be pretty much 30 million for this year. Maybe they can work out a deal where it's less than that, and instead his contract is backloaded. But that's the biggest one for sure.
How interesting is it that the reason why Dak is potentially able to be traded isn't because he wants out or he's not happy with the personnel or he's not happy with everything. It's just money.
The franchise tag.
It's just money.
Yeah.
And so like I'm like one of these other franchises. I'm like, if I have the money and I can give you your money, bro. Like, let's go ahead. That's a fresh start.
I don't think the Cowboys would let him go anywhere unless they have a quarterback on the other end of that they can trade for it.
I'm saying it's best case scenario. It totally makes sense to tag and trade Dak for either of the 2 guys. Everyone wins in the situation.
Yeah. Some of their other impending free agents, they have Andy Dalton as their backup quarterback, which was a lucky call on their end to sign probably the best backup quarterback in free agency last year.
Heineke.
No, Andy Dalton being the best backup free agent quarterback is a good call. Heineke played 2 games the entire year.
Better than Dalton. Good. Facts.
Sure. All right, and then they also have some offensive linemen in Cameron Irving and Joe Looney. This team is one of those where their offensive line used to be the staple of their team. They used to be a big mauling offensive line. Zeke would run behind it, and their quarterback play was, can Dak do it? Now it's almost the team relies on Dak Prescott and Zeke to make plays, and is their offensive line going to be healthy? Because, Tyron Smith is old. It's probably over for him as far as like starting on that left side. And they're losing a couple of guys. They're probably going to have to pay for some free agent signings because
Yeah.
it'll be harder. I mean, they can always just draft, but
It's
they
going to
have other needs.
be, man, they lose a lot of their defensive backs, and they don't care because they weren't very good. Like, bottom
Uh,
line.
yeah, Byron Jones leaving was a big deal.
I think,
They
yeah,
had one of the worst defensive back cores of all of the NFL last year.
yeah.
I think there was a couple of plays or a couple of games where they let 50 points, and it was just like, oh, let's just throw against the Cowboys. It's that easy.
So, what do they need? What do you think they need to be better?
Cornerback, defensive lineman, and if they let Alden Smith go, edge rusher. I think they drafted a safety last year, and I think that they could probably just rely on that for one more year. But I think they need cornerback. Obviously, they have Diggs, who they drafted last year as well, but he looked, fine as a rookie. Not good, not bad, just fine.
It doesn't
But
help that everyone else sucked around him. So,
yeah, they're
yeah,
losing
we'll see.
Chidobe Awuzie, which is, I hope that's how you say his name, because
Yeah, it is.
I feel like every time I've ever heard it, that's how it's pronounced. But he is their other starting corner, who was probably their best corner this year. And then they're also losing their nickel corner in Jordan Lewis. So I don't know that that's a horrible
Bro.
thing, but you have to have corners.
I'm gonna interrupt you.
Yeah.
At chat, if you're watching this on YouTube, whatever, do yourself a favor and Google Jordan Lewis Michigan interception. It's literally the dopest interception of all time.
Okay.
Sorry,
Right.
just
No, you're
look
fine.
it up. It's so sick. Look it up.
I mean, do you agree on those team needs though?
Yeah,
Edge
absolutely.
rushers, cornerbacks,
They're in trouble.
linebackers, defensive linemen.
They're in trouble.
They need all of the levels of the defense.
Trading Dak and not wasting their cap would help, but they have to have Dak. I think Dak's a franchise quarterback. I think Dak is better than a lot of the guys. I don't know if I would want to draft any of these guys over Dak. So what do you even want to? Well, there's no argument that you're gonna have to spend the money on Dak. So then it's like, how do you replace these holes? I don't know. They're gonna have to get creative. They're gonna have to cut people.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they're one of the teams that you can look to sign some veterans towards some minimums. Some guys that are on the ends of their careers. We mentioned like Ricardo Allen and Alan Bailey. Those are types of guys that they can go for. But we can move on to the New York Giants. I think that's the next team.
I don't
think
the Giants have a ton to work on this offseason. I think they just need to get people back and healthy, like Saquon. They need to make sure that they can work on getting Daniel Jones a playmaker, whether that's through the draft or through free agency. They don't have a ton of money. They have just under $1 million in open cap currently. I think that they're gonna look to get him a playmaker, and that could be a huge difference for them. Like their defense is good. They can use some secondary help, but for the most part, they're pretty well rounded as a football team.
Yeah, I think more than anything, their defense needs edge rushers.
You think so?
Yeah, they did it. They tried to use Marcus Golden as their kind of like main guy this year, and they ended up trading him back to Arizona, which is funny, They also had Kyler Fackrell, who's another free agent for them, who's their leading sacker leader this year, and
sack leader, whatever.
Yeah, then they also have 2 interior defensive linemen who are probably the number 1 and number 2 interior defensive linemen to hit the free agency market this year in Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson. I almost said Sylvester Williams, who's
Leonard
a Bronco.
Williams was on the trade block for a little portion last year. I think he's a guy that they know he's got tons of value, and they knew they weren't going to be able to keep this year. They're not going to tag him. He's going to be too expensive. They don't have the money.
It'll be the second tag, and it'll be about $19 million. So
yeah, and so I think with him, he's one of those guys that is going to go to a team that's willing to pay and looking to build a strong D line because he's a stud. He always has been, especially in the run game.
So those 2 guys are big pieces. I expect them to try and bring Dalvin Tomlinson back if they lose out on Leonard Williams, because I mean you have to. Those guys are such big impact makers in your defense. Losing both of them would be a nightmare. How would you replace them?
I mean, they're not going to use the first round pick on replacing one of those guys. They're going to use the first round pick on getting a stud wide receiver to run with Daniel. It's the only good thing they can do.
I feel like
they're not in a lovely spot in terms of where wide receivers are going to fall for them in the draft order. But
it'll be all right.
They can make some moves. They can make it happen.
I think
they're that good. They could reach somewhere else.
I think right now they have 3 number 2 wide receivers, so it's really hard for a team that has a quarterback that is prone to making mistakes, doesn't have a true number 1 wide receiver, and your tight end is your biggest playmaker in the receiving game, and he can't even be trusted to catch the ball half the time.
Yeah,
so
he's not super good.
it's
No
a
doubt.
pivotal year. I think Evan Ingram, they have Golden Tate, who we both expect to be released, I
Yeah,
think.
I mean he was having team problems.
Yeah.
He was suspended for team violation
And
for,
then he started like the last 6 games, and
and he played
he's
all right. Yeah, he played all
yeah.
right. Man,
And
he's
so
played
it's one of
good
those things
everywhere he's
where I
been.
think, I think for him it's going, or for the Giants, it's going to be a year where they probably draft somebody in like the third round to be their next star wide receiver and hope it pans out, and then they move on from basically all of their wide receiver core after this year.
Yeah,
Tight ends and wide
their
receivers
offense
gone.
is going to be tough to watch, but it'll be better with Saquon.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the Eagles now because, man, they have a critical offseason in terms of getting this franchise turned around. They trade Carson Wentz. They get a second conditional first if things go all right
And
over
a
there
third.
in
Yep.
Indianapolis, and a third round pick. They still take all the dead cap, the highest dead cap in
Yeah.
NFL history.
They got rid of some future money, which was big because their team is in bad cap situation for the
Yeah.
next 3 years, basically.
Basically
The
what
cost of a Super Bowl. The cost of
Yeah,
a Super Bowl.
100%. They won the Super Bowl, and then after that, cap, boom, crush all across
Yep.
the board. So they're going to lose big name veterans all over the place. They don't really have any young guys, like young in terms of age, maybe, but guys like Roby Coleman and Jalen Mills have played for a while. And I think these guys are all expensive. They're not going to be able to get any of these guys back. Peters is expensive, not coming back.
I don't think so. I
I
don't
think
think
he's
so.
not coming back. I see
I
Peters leaving.
If
Or
Peters
retire.
doesn't retire, if he doesn't retire, he will be an Eagle for the same thing that they had him for this year. He'll sign for like $3 million. He's at the point where he's like 38 years old. I don't think he's gonna care too much about the money side of it. He's already been paid over $200 million by the Eagles alone. So I think it's one of those things. If he is resigned, which they don't need to, the reason they had Peters in the first place, they signed him about week 4 of last year, was because of injuries.
Who got hurt?
Lane Johnson
Who got hurt? No, other than that.
on their offensive line.
Andre Dillard, baby, their first overall.
He's their right tackle though.
He was their first round selection, I know,
Yeah.
but he got hurt, and that's what prompted the re-signing of Peters because Peters was replacing Lane.
Yeah, but Dillard also can play guard, so that's the reason.
Well, what school did Dillard go to?
Was it Eastern Washington?
Washington State, baby.
Oh.
Shout out Andre Dillard. Go
Sorry.
Cougs. Once an
Had to
episode.
happen at some
Once
point. I
an
should have
episode.
guessed. I
Once
should
an
have guessed. All right, so they're gonna lose. They're probably gonna lose Jalen Mills, Nicole Roby-Coleman. They also have Cravon LeBlanc, who's another one of their starting
Matt
cornerbacks.
LeBronc's brother-in-law.
I don't know if that has anything, if that's based in fact at all, but
No,
I just know they're losing their 3 starting corners, and they aren't in a good situation on their defense right
Their
now.
whole team is going to be changed. Their coaching staff's going to be changed. Everything is going to be different with this team. We're going to see a team built around Jalen. It's going to be interesting.
And Miles Sanders too.
Miles Sanders, I saw a stat the other day, has the most runs of over 60 yards in the NFL since he got in, and that surprised me.
It's 2 years, but it makes sense. He's a big play guy. Love him. He's great. Great ball catcher too. I think there are 2 guys to build a good team around. I like that. Jalen Reagor looks pretty good. I think they have, they have options, and Dallas Goedert's still there, which leads us to they're probably going to cut Zach Ertz. Be prepared. Be prepared. Zach Ertz will likely be a free agent. Expect him to sign for a team like, I don't know, probably about halfway through free agency being open and actually make an impact somewhere.
He's not going to sign with a team that is like the Jets or the Dolphins. He's going to sign with a team that made the playoffs last year, and
he's going to be a starting tight end for a playoff team because tight ends are a premium in the NFL, and Zach Ertz is still a starter.
Yeah, and then the last team in the division that won the division is the Washington football team. They have a ton of cap room compared to their fellow teams in this division. $38 million. They have probably a lot of that's going to go to a big stud on the offensive line, right, Colin?
Brandon Sheriff for sure. The Sheriff.
Yeah, and I remember when he got drafted, people were like, "This guy's going to shore up the offensive line for years to come," and he's done just that. He's been great.
Well, for them it was we had Trent Williams and we have Brandon Sheriff, and our offensive line is incredible, and then Trent Williams starts holding out and wants a trade and wants to go to a good team. Makes sense. Now everybody's wondering, is the Sheriff about to leave town? Because this seems very similar to a previous situation, and if they re-tag him again, he gets paid even more money. Does he even want to play on the tag?
He will play for them. He will be on this team next year.
I agree. I think I wrote it down here. I think he's likely to return to the team. Yeah. They have an interesting offense because it's so It's so interesting to see what they do at quarterback if they actually roll with
And
Taylor
at running
Heineke.
back,
Well, running back is great. They're good. They are solid. They have
I don't
Smooch's
know.
J.D. McKissick, and
I don't
they
know. They don't have. I could see them getting
what?
a real running back.
Are you
I'm
making a
not team.
joke?
I'm not team Smooches,
That's not their starting running back.
and I'm not team McKissick.
That's the same person.
Then why'd you say both names?
I gave him a nickname.
I
It's
thought
a
you were talking
nickname.
about Gibson with Smooches.
No, I'm not talking about Antonio Gibson. I'm talking about J.D. McKissick.
Oh,
Kiss smooches.
Smooches. Got it. I'm not
Yeah,
down. No,
it's okay.
he's fine. He's gone.
You don't think Antonio Gibson's a starting running back? Are
I
you
don't think
kidding
he's a
me?
stud. I don't think he's a stud.
Okay. Remember that come fantasy football time, my friend, because I will take him over anybody you list.
Hey, here's my thing: is how did he do last year overall?
Incredible.
How many games he play?
Every single one except for the last two when he had turf toe.
I don't recall him being an impact player at all. I don't remember anything
Oh
about him.
man, nah, you're mistaken.
I don't remember him being good at all.
You're
Did he
mistaken.
score a touchdown this year?
I think he scored 11.
I don't even know.
See, you just didn't even look at the team. You don't even know.
No, he was just that absent.
A rookie running back that performed at his level will not be upgraded next year, especially when they have J.D. McKissick to be a
I don't even know
perfect
anything about him. That's how not good he was.
Memphis running back. How's that for knowing colleges? I did it.
Don't know any, but here you go.
All right.
All right, and I think
You're just wrong. I that's
they draft. I think they draft a quarterback regardless,
Okay.
first or second round. We're going to move forward because I'm going to be wrong on that one. But
well, hold on. We got to talk a little bit more about the team.
they're cutting Alex Smith. They're going to save a bunch of money off of that. And
This is the team that Ron Rivera is building up for pretty much the exact same situation he had with Cam Newton. He's trying to build a strong defense, and he's trying to build an offense that can run the ball, and he's trying to build an offense that does some short passing. That's pretty much the goal here.
well, they need wideouts to go with my boy because if they don't
Terry
get someone with
McLaurin.
McLaurin, then they're going to just be struggling because man, he's getting double teamed, but he's still producing. And I think they just need someone else with him.
Yeah, I agree. And they did great with Logan Thomas at tight end. He was a big hit for them last year.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting team. They just need to figure out if they have a good quarterback in Taylor Heineke who can start a season's worth of games while a rookie prepares, or if they just need to go the, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert route and, start all over. But they're not in a position to do that. They have a back end draft pick because they made the playoffs at 6-10.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the Eagles have the same record and they're picking top 10. All right,
Yeah.
so Broncos, Denver Broncos, AFC West. This is a team that's going to have a lot to change this year. We'll see. We'll know a lot if they decide to move on from Drew Lock. It's crazy the amount of time that these quarterbacks are given now. The guy was drafted in the first round,
Second
2
round.
years.
Second round.
I thought he was first round, pick 15.
No.
Pretty confident.
Look it up.
Pretty confident.
All right, look it up. I'm pretty sure he's a second round draft pick, like pick 50 or like pick 46 or something like that.
No, you're right. I'm just wrong twice. He's drafted 42nd.
Oh, see, yeah, it's okay. It's totally fine. We actually, I think, have a written down bet that you think Drew Lock will be the starting quarterback for 10 plus games for the Denver Broncos this year, and I say that he's horrible and should be replaced.
I don't remember.
That's okay. I'm of the opinion that this team, who go into the year with $42 million in cap space before likely releases of Von Miller and Kareem Jackson, which will give them another $28 million, are on the precipice of a full team rebuild.
Yeah.
It is a crazy place to be for a team like the Denver Broncos, who we've seen hanging on to playoff relevance, and a team that everybody has thought of for the last 3 or 4 years as being one of the most dominant defensive units in the NFL. They are moving on from vets. Guys are old and aging out of, playing in a top defense. They have their young guys and like Justin Simmons, who's a free agent this year and will likely be, yoinked by a team for the top safety contract of the year. So
yeah,
maybe
maybe
it's a crazy place.
Contract ever, depending on who throws him.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think he's deserving. He was definitely the best safety in the NFL last year.
Yeah.
Shots at all the safeties. I don't even care. Look at the stats. But yeah, so it's a team that I think needs pretty much a little bit of everything. Wide receiver is probably the only position or wide receiver and running back are the only positions I wouldn't recommend for them as far as needs. I maybe even tight end. Skill positions are good. Let's say that. They do need
Yeah.
some offensive line help. They don't have a starting right tackle anymore. They do probably need to replace Drew Lock, in my opinion.
All of this hinges on that.
Yes,
Literally everything that the whole direction that they will make depends on, hey, are we going to stick with Drew Lock? Or are we going to let him go? Because
yeah,
I mean, a team will trade something for him.
and
He
then
has had moments. He's just a gunslinger type,
yeah,
and he just very inconsistent, and you can't beat
inconsistency,
that. Yeah.
inconsistency
And so,
constantly. The
and
only thing he's consistent with is his inconsistency.
fair enough.
Yeah,
So we're gonna jump to the Chiefs. You know,
yeah.
they
Well,
go win the
just
Super
really
Bowl.
quick for the Broncos, a team that has been a defensive stalwart, as far as the tops in the NFL. They have needs at every single position on the defense.
Yeah, I
Every
mean,
single position. Name it, and they can use one of them because Von Miller's about to be released, and that's a huge person to replace.
it'll be
And
interesting to see John Elway. He kind of moved away from the role this year. They switched things up. He kind of, since that Super Bowl, he hasn't really hit on his draft picks and
nope,
what he's been doing. So a
yeah,
different direction will be going forward for the Broncos, and
definitely.
that's gonna show.
And this is a great team to expect a head coach change at some point in the next year.
Yeah, I mean
I
that's what
don't
happens
think.
when you draft a quarterback and it doesn't hit.
Yep. And if you're a defensive coach and your defense is performing at bottom of the NFL levels, typically you don't get a long leash there because there's not a lot of defensive head coaches. We can move on to the Chiefs now, who are in a little bit of an interesting place as far as the cap goes. They're a team that has been rolling with, we have a chance at a Super Bowl. Vets will sign with us. We have guys that we need to resign that other teams are going to try and take away from us. So we have to give out some big contracts. And now they're at negative 25 over the cap, 25 million over the cap. So that's an interesting place to be with as many free agents as they have.
Yeah, and they had a lot of injuries in that Super Bowl and during those playoffs. And the key thing to realize here is they saw how they can. The whole NFL saw how they can be beaten in
Yep.
that game. And so when we're talking about their free agents, how many of them are offensive linemen, Colin?
They are losing offensive linemen Austin Ryder, Daniel Kilgore, Kelechi Osemele, Andrew Wiley, Steven Wisniewski, Mike Remmers. All of those started games for them throughout their season and their playoffs.
And Eric Fisher, it got hurt at the very end of the year, Achilles injury, serious, and is a potential cap casualty because they save a ton of money to get rid of him. I know it's
Yeah,
grimy, but it's a business, and
yeah,
it's a potential thing for him to happen. And they likely get Tardif back on
yeah,
contract this year. He opted out during the pandemic, but he'll probably come back this year. So that
yeah.
is some relief for them. But Mitchell Schwartz, another offensive lineman, is another potential cap cut. So it's
Yep.
like, man, the offensive line is going to have to be completely redone.
It's interesting.
Expect their draft to be O-line heavy this year.
So they're going to draft 3 wide receivers, is what you mean.
No,
Sounds good.
O-line heavy.
Because they are also losing some other important free agents. They are losing both their third and fourth wide receivers as far as Sammy Watkins and Demarcus Robinson go. They are losing a couple of their key edge rushers in Taco Charlton and Alex Okafor. They're also losing 2 of their 3 starting cornerbacks in Trevarius Ward and Bashad Breeland, although they did have their rookie, I can't remember his name for some reason. They had a rookie that did really well this year, and they're also losing Le'Veon Bell and Daniel Sorensen. Daniel Sorensen was their third safety.
They
Lev
love
Bell.
him. He'll
Yeah,
he might
he's
sign
yeah,
cheap.
that's a guy that they could probably get back for pretty cheap because they
It,
already have Juan Thornhill, and then obviously they have the Honey Badger. So
Yeah, I mean,
a
it's
lot
going
of
to
a lot of people.
be an important year. I mean, we saw Mahomes not healthy during that playoff run, so I
Yeah,
think they know that they got to keep him healthy. He had a dislocated knee the year they won the Super Bowl. It's like, okay, like
yeah.
we got to protect the dude, or else he's going to be Russell Wilson saying he might want to leave unless he can get some.
Yeah, and I think their defense is going to be the most interesting part. Obviously, they have some really big guys that are still going to be around, but they're losing a lot of starters that I don't know that they have current replacements for. And then you're paying like a guy like Frank Clark as much money as you are, and he's not really getting the numbers you want. His sack numbers might be a little bit higher than his actual rush numbers, and that's just situational because you have a monster in the middle like Chris Jones who's just eating up interior offensive lineman and pushing you into the lucky arms of Frank Clark. So,
Yeah, better be lucky than good. Anyway,
yeah.
so speaking of lucky,
True.
yeah, better be lucky than good. The
They just need to
Chargers.
fit the team under the cap, and then they'll be back to where they were last year.
I mean, as long as you have Mahomes healthy, you'll be back to where you are.
Exactly. Yep.
Um,
Figure it out.
The Chargers have 23 mil right now available to
Yep.
them. Hunter Henry's the guy that they're gonna have to spend either a majority of that number for,
Yep.
or they.
Tagged last year, so the tag for this year is up 4% for him as well. So that's a
Yeah,
pretty significant tight end tag. That would actually be about 14 million for
yeah,
him.
and they can't pay that. So they're gonna, like, if you think about what was the biggest tight end contract they went last year, was to Austin Hooper. Was the
Probably.
biggest
Yeah.
contract they went last year, and that was about I believe it was five years, 40 million.
Yeah, it was
So
about 9 million a year.
yeah,
Uh,
I believe that's kind of
with
where.
all of the bonuses and averages out. But yeah, he's one of their big free agents. They're obviously losing Tyrod Taylor, but they have Justin Herbert, and I think they're very
And
happy to
he
let
won't want to
Tyrod go.
return. He won't want
No,
to
Tyrod's going to look for a starting role, and he probably could do it. Who
Washington
knows?
football team.
Who knows? But they're also losing some other guys, especially on the defensive unit. They're losing Melvin Ingram. They're losing Denzel Perriman. They have a couple of other players. And Rayshawn Jenkins is another good safety that is expected to hit the market this year, along with all the other ones. And then they're losing another linebacker, Nick Vigil. They'll probably look to bring back one of Vigil or Perryman because they need a starter, and both of those guys have been okay in that role. And then they're losing offensive lineman Dan Feeney and Forrest Lamp, although I don't expect that they're going to be too upset about that because one of their biggest holes is definitely going to be trying to replace almost the entire offensive line. Almost everyone, because you also had Pouncey retire, and now it's at the point where you need to maybe replace four starting offensive linemen.
Yeah,
That's a hard place to be at.
they're gonna have to make a decision early. It's how far do we think we are from actually continuing with the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Because if they decide, hey, we're not that far off, let's go get playmakers. They can do that, or they can go, hey, let's shore up the offensive line. We'll take 1, 2 more years, and
Yeah.
then we have their number.
Yeah.
I think that they're gonna do the latter of those two potential scenarios, and I think that they would be smart to knowing the fact that the Chiefs are hurt in cap, and I think they can get away with buying another year or two and
I
keep
agree.
building. And I think that that's what they'll do.
I think this is a team where 2 years from now you could be looking at one of the better teams in the NFL. They
That's if
have.
Herbert plays well.
Well, I mean, like obviously, all teams hinge on whether or not their quarterbacks play well. He looked great last year,
He did look good.
it's very exciting, and they have guys in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen that you are always going to be like, that's a damn good wide receiver group.
Yeah, Mike Williams, he's a guy who I didn't expect to stay there. I
Yeah,
thought he ended up leaving, and I was
same.
surprised. And he didn't
Um,
take a ton of money either.
Yeah, I think for them, we talk about offensive line. If Melvin Ingram leaves, I almost said Melvin Gordon, who did leave. If Melvin Ingram leaves, then they need a guy to go opposite of Bosa on the other side. They are probably going to be a team to look to replace Hunter Henry, in my opinion. Henry talked about he's open to any teams as far as free agency goes. I think that's a guy saying, I want my money, and I'm not winning playoff games here, so why would I give you a discount?
Yeah.
So I think we could expect him to go somewhere else and get paid pretty well to do so. So they'll probably need a tight end, and then they need a big back that's dependable because Josh Kelly was supposed to be that for them, and he had fumble issues, big fumble issues. So I don't know if that's the answer. Look for them to probably do more drafting than free agent plays.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they want to blow their cap now. They'll wait until they need a plug-in starter, a very big player, a piece to what they need.
Probably like
to
a tackle or a defensive lineman or something like
Yeah.
that.
Or
All right.
the biggest DB on the market. That's the
Yeah,
type of move you can make.
definitely.
Let's jump to the Raiders.
Sure.
They're not doing well in cap. Another team that's under the cap. Over the cap. They can get under it with a few easy cuts.
Yeah.
Guys like Richie Incognito, trading Marcus Mariota, who might be someone that a team is looking to give a late round pick for. Cutting Lamarcus Joyner.
They have one of the worst scenarios, I think, going into the offseason, in my opinion. I don't think they're a team they're not picking high. They have a bunch of people that they probably are disappointed in as far as draft pick goes over the last couple of years. And they're a team that is at a place where everybody questions whether or not they even like their own quarterback. So
Yeah,
it's
you
really
can't.
interesting to be
I mean,
a Raider right now.
if you're Mike Mayock and you're sitting there looking at your roster and you're like, who is a stud for me?
Yeah.
It's just not a lot of guys. There's just not a lot of guys. You're like,
You
oh,
say
we
that
missed
right now, and I'm like, Crosby probably. Max Crosby is probably like your stud, and even he isn't like a top edge rusher in the NFL. He's just a
uh,
really lively guy. He looks interesting on the
there
field.
there just aren't studs for this team. And
Yeah,
I mean, if you're getting beat by the Chiefs twice. I know they beat them last year, the
yeah,
only team to beat them or whatever. But
yeah.
I know the Chargers beat them when they benched Mahomes. But yeah, I just think that they're not going to be anywhere near that playoff like conversation. I know they were in it because a couple like the Jets blew a game like on a Hail Mary to
Yeah,
Ruggs, and then the Dolphins somehow lost that game with like
yeah.
that PI call, and I'm just like, this
It's
team should have been eliminated in week 14, and
yeah.
they're here.
I think for them it's mostly about defense. They probably need two starting corners, two starting linebackers. I mean, I'm of the opinion that Jonathan Abrams is playing pretty poorly as far as pass defending goes, and he's not Jamal Adams. And I think that's an important thing for people to realize. Jamal Adams gets those numbers on the edge, like we were talking about. Jonathan Abrams isn't getting those numbers on the edge. He's just stuffing the run, but it's not hard for somebody that's 15 yards off the ball to sprint at a running back.
Yeah, and
So
then people are really impressed with how he hits and his physicality. But
he's
hey, if
injured
he's not,
because of it.
but also if he's not covering the guy and they're throwing the ball right past him, who cares how well he hits? He's not hitting the guy.
And if he gets hurt every time he hits somebody too, it's rough. So I think for this team, looking at their free agents, they have Nicholas Morrow, Malik Collins, Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Booker, just some that I wrote down. I expect them to probably bring back all of those guys because those aren't huge names, and this is a team that they can't replace everybody this year. They don't have the money or the draft capital to replace everybody, so they probably need to bring back some of these free agents that are going to perform at a lower level than they want, but they can't
Or let
afford
them
it.
all walk.
Or let them all walk and sign some other free agents that are
Yeah.
going to do the same thing.
They go veteran minimum. They build through the draft. They trade back in
Yeah.
the draft. I know they don't have a great pick, but hey, trading back is how you can build something.
Yeah.
And then you got to start hitting, and
Well,
then maybe even trade Derek Carr. I mean, get some stuff for him if you're going to blow up the team and you don't have anyone worth building around.
I don't think
Go
they're
for
I
it.
don't think they're at a stage of blowing up though. We talk about knowing when to blow it up. This is a team that has skill positions that are young, and Josh Jacobs, Henry Ruggs, those are guys that you can build around. Derek Carr's a good quarterback, and they have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. So I think this is a team that literally they just need to build defense because Darren Waller is also one of the best tight ends in the NFL. You
That's a good
have one
point.
of the best offenses in the NFL. You beat the Chiefs last year in a shootout. Like
Yeah, I mean,
you can
hey,
you can hang with them.
I will say that their offense, they might not have big name superstars, but those guys do all contribute. I
Yep.
will say that. I don't think Ruggs is the number one wide receiver. I'm sorry. He tried to draft
Sure.
a Tyreek clone. He wasn't. I don't think he's a Tyreek clone. I think Nelson
see.
Aguilar was a better wide receiver for him.
Yeah, we'll
And
see how it
I-
goes with him
and
because it's
I'm
first year.
interested.
Yeah.
I know. I'm interested. I do think if that's what I'm saying. You either let these guys walk
Yeah.
and you try to build the right way with the guys under contract, and you trade back, get draft guys, and hopefully they hit, and you focus defense, or you come to terms with yourself at the end of this year or next year. Derek Carr is a big number.
Yeah.
It's time to
agree.
move.
I think they give it 2 more years, and if they can't build a defense that's competent enough to hold them up in a shootout, then it's time to maybe just
You
move
think
on.
they'll make the playoffs next year?
No.
No. So then I think they're going to get frustrated. They signed Gruden to a 10-year contract. I mean,
Yeah, we'll see.
who
We'll see how it
knows?
goes. We'll see how it goes. All right, let's move on to the NFC West because we have 4 more teams to cover, and
This
we're already at
is-
the hour mark. So,
This is the best division in football, in my opinion.
yeah, that's
Best
fair.
division in football.
Maybe the AFC North. Maybe the AFC North.
I bet if you took the best 3 teams from the AFC West versus the best 3 teams from the AFC North.
NFC West, AFC North.
Sorry. Yeah. I think only 3 can make the playoffs, right? For each. Let's say you match them up. I think the NFC West would win more of the games.
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, it's kind of dependent on defenses, I think.
Yeah. All right. So the Cardinals, 11
Yeah.
mil cap, fun team to watch. They were in a lot of close games 2 years ago. This year they won more of those close games. I bet you this coming year they're going to win even more of those games. Kyler Murray needs to be healthy. They have a lot of free agents, some old guys, mainly defense though, and that's where they could win. That's where they can win those closer games if they get some of these defensive guys back or fill these defensive holes. Free agents like Patrick Peterson, been there forever. Guy loves that city loves him, and he's been amazing. But he's not going to be back.
I think it's the time he moves on because he's played way lower than what he's been paid the last 2 years, and I think it's one of those situations where the team is so sick and tired of hearing he's the best corner that they want a new corner almost.
Richard Sherman is what the path he's going to be on now.
Yeah.
Now he's going to work 2-year deals for himself, go to where contenders could be, and play well. I think he'll play at high level.
He'll play great. Yeah.
You have Drake Kirkpatrick, Angelo
underperformed.
Blackson.
Angelo Blackson was really good for them. They need a good defensive lineman. Hassan Reddick moved positions to a pure edge rusher and had an incredible season for sack numbers.
He's going to get paid.
He'll get paid more than they can probably afford to pay him, and probably they don't want to after watching him fail for 4 years. So
then you have guys like Kelvin Beachum and
starting tackle. They probably got for cheaper than they should have, and they'll probably get him again for cheaper than they should have.
And then I think you got some interesting ones here. You got Zane Gonzalez. Do you think he's the answer at your kicker position? It's hard to find a good kicker you can rely on in the NFL.
I don't know that he's top 5 reliability. But I do know he has a leg. So that's all I think you need to look for is can you be better? I don't think so.
And kicker competition is cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
I think he's honestly a tag candidate. Just tag him and pay him $3 million or whatever and be happy with it.
Well, then there's their big two. Larry Fitzgerald and Kenyon Drake. I think they love what Kenyon Drake brings to that offense. Very versatile player, explosive player. I don't see him going anywhere. I think he's going to be their priority. Especially, I don't think he's going to be the main guy that people are going to be going after in the free agent market in terms of running backs. There's a lot of guys out there.
I think Aaron Jones is definitely the one that everybody will look at.
And I don't think Kenyon Drake's going to be one of those we see a contract day one. He went to the Dolphins back to the Dolphins or the Jets for hell of money. I just don't see that happening. I see him sticking there. He loves the offense. He likes the amount of touches he gets a game. He'll stay. As for Larry Fitz, man, I don't see him. I don't see him finishing his career anywhere else. It's that
so hard. This is one of the hardest players. It's one of the hardest players to look at because he deserves $5 million. Right? At the minimum, $5 million. Even at his age, he deserves $5 million. And will he play somewhere else? Please, no. I think every NFL fan will say, please don't let Larry Fitzgerald play somewhere else. But this $5 million is a lot of money.
Especially when you only have 11.
I mean, especially when you don't need a wide receiver. You don't even need Larry Fitzgerald. You have a true number one in D-Hop, so you don't actually need a Larry Fitzgerald around because you have a bunch of 2s and 3s and 4s that you've spent draft picks on. So why?
Well, let's just say you're D-Hop and the Cardinals approach you and go, hey, well, can we take $2 million off your salary? Can we give that to Fitz to stay? I think with a guy like him, it's a lot easier to get guys to restructure to keep him on the squad.
So if Larry Fitzgerald returns to the NFL, he should be a Cardinal. He should get paid probably $5 million, and that will be his deal. I think they need to keep doing it.
He's going to Tampa. All right, so
team needs because we haven't talked about that. They do need some help defensively. We talked about they're losing their starting cornerbacks. That's 2 places that they need to fill on their defense. We talked about the fact that Hassan Reddick was their sack leader last year. Chandler Jones was hurt. He's been hurt a lot of times in the last couple of years. They probably need some edge rush help and some other defensive line help. I think this is a team where they have guys that could probably fill some of these roles, but they also may not want to wait for that window to open. You got to make adjustments and go get it energized.
Speaking of, appreciate how I made your mother reference. Speaking of windows, the Los Angeles Rams have the smallest window of any team to win the Super Bowl. It is this season.
Yes.
That's how big their window is.
Yeah.
They have huge players under contract, huge current free agents.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that they're dead in the cap. Like, they're going to be hurting for years because of that Jared Goff contract. Not to mention that they're paying the best defensive player in the league in Aaron Donald. And
Jalen Ramsey as well.
And so it's like at this point that this is their year, and I think they know that they're going all out for it. And hey, some teams don't care. Some teams
Yeah,
are like, let's just do it.
they're at negative 34 million, so they're 34 million over the cap. They have guys like Troy Hill, starting corner, Leonard Floyd, starting edge rusher, John Johnson, starting safety, Gerald Everett, halftime starting tight end with him and Higbee. Their third/fourth wide receiver Josh Reynolds, and then also Austin Blythe, their starting center. They have some free agents. They can't resign.
Low key, Josh Reynolds is a guy that I like.
I like him too.
I like him too. I want him to
Yeah.
go to the
So
Titans for cheap, but
unless they can find some way to bring back Leonard Floyd, they need a starting edge rusher. I doubt they'll be able to afford to re-sign Troy Hill after the season he had. And John Johnson is another one of those safeties who we can expect to probably get close to the highest paid safeties in the NFL. So they are about to lose.
It's a big safety market this year.
Yeah,
big safety market.
Huge safety market. There's a lot of key players on their defense that they're about to lose, and it's going to be hard for them to replace them. They don't have draft picks. They don't have cap room. So we'll see how they do it.
Yeah, man, and they don't have a high draft pick. Even if they would have had a draft pick.
Yeah. Yep.
They just don't have anything.
It's one of those teams where they have this very clear, we have a starter, and the guy after him is the question. So, who steps up opposite of Jalen Ramsey next year?
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of undrafted free agents, a lot of vets on low contracts. Exactly. I think, and also I think we're going to see guys that want to come play for this team. They have an exciting brand of football.
Yeah.
They have good leaders on either side. They have a fun image. I think that there will be guys that will take discounts to play there and potentially win.
The only thing they don't have is a good list of cap casualties, because they only have like 6 players making above $4 million, because they're paying 6 or 7 guys $20+ million essentially.
Yeah.
So
and Jared Goff.
And Jared Goff, yeah.
That's paying Jared Goff too. And Todd Gurley.
Expect them to do a lot of restructuring of their contracts with their veterans and just try and bring somebody in to be an edge rusher. That's my take.
And my hot take rather, Colin, is that Matt Stafford will lead the NFL in passing yards and touchdowns this year. I think in the Sean McVay offense with these wide receivers and Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and you just mentioned Reynolds or Everett, if they can bring either one of those guys back, they're very, very good in terms of that's the third guy down the list, fourth guy down the list. Yeah. And Akers can catch the ball out of the backfield.
They have Van Jefferson they drafted last year. They still have Higbee,
yeah, man. And then you're gotta understand, Stafford his whole career has never had a defense that put him in good positions, that allowed him to get a lead. Yes, that allowed Stafford to throw the ball more, but now for the first time, this is the best skill position group he's ever had. He had Megatron, Hall of Fame, no doubt, and Marvin Jones and Galladay, no doubt good. But would you take Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp over Galladay and Marvin Jones?
Yeah, those guys. I don't know if I would say it's the best ever skill positions. I think it's the best team he's ever been on, for sure.
Oh, I think it's the best skill positions, though, is what I'm trying to say, is why his guys will blow up. They will blow up. And I think that he's going to throw for more touchdowns than Mahomes. I think he's going to throw for more yards than Mahomes. He's already done that.
I'm very excited.
I think he's going to do it.
Yeah. And I saw something that was like the only two wide receivers.
He might be MVP.
The only
third MVP pull-up.
Maybe. They were the only 2 wide receivers to catch 80 catches apiece.
Yeah, I think
Woods, Cooper Kupp.
I think that he's going to really kill it with him this year.
Yeah.
All right.
Seattle Seahawks. They are a team that is just barely under the cap at $4 million. They are a team with some pretty important free agents in both their starting running back, Chris Carson, one of the better linebackers in the NFL, and KJ Wright, my opinion. And then also both of their starting cornerbacks in Shaquille Griffin and Quentin Dunbar. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with obviously little money like everybody else, but with a lot of important positions on a team that has already seen what it's like to lose your best cornerback in Richard Sherman.
Not to mention, this year they have the pressure of this Russ talk. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to shape this to be a different type of offseason than we've seen ever from them. They've really been focused on, okay, we'll bring people in when we have to. We're going to focus heavy on big name veteran guys. They brought in Clowney. They trade for Jimmy Graham. You know what I'm saying? They make very specific moves. And I don't think they're going to have to do a whole facelift this year.
No, I think they are a team that knows their identity, and that is we have offensive skill players that can change a game, and our defense can hang on sometimes. That's the place they're at, and it's worked. They obviously have a quarterback that can do it all. it's just they obviously are going to have to look at, we need offensive linemen. What offensive linemen do we need? We have a really good guard that was a rookie last year. We have maybe a tackle. We're losing our starting center. Mikey Opati just retired, but he was their kind of swing guard, swing tackle.
Played well though.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just one of those things where they have the wide receivers. They have a running back in Chris Carson who they believe in. They have linebackers, and can they put the other pieces together, keep all the guys that they need to start, maybe look for some younger upgrades on secondary, some younger upgrades at edge rusher, because Carlos Dunlap is a huge cap number, potential casualty.
He's going to be gone for sure.
And then also moving on from a guy like Trey Flowers, who probably is playing above his or playing below his pay amount. So
the big one for me here is Chris Carson. The reason why I think it's the big one for me is a lot of the games that the Seahawks won, he set the tone early.
Yes.
And you can tell they missed him when he got hurt.
His physicality is important to that offense.
Yeah, and I think that's their big one. He's not going to be the number one running back in free agency, obviously, because Aaron Jones and Kenyon Drake might even get more looks than him. I'm not even sure, but I think he might stay because it depends on Russ. If he's a Russ guy, if Russ loves him, and
I agree.
Then he might be the guy they pay. But man, they're going to let some people go, and it's going to be tough for them to.
I feel like it's a team where if they don't bring back Chris Carson and KJ Wright, their identity has changed already.
Yeah, and KJ Wright's been flying under the radar for a decade with them. I mean, him and Bobby Swag just been next door to each other, killing it, and I just don't know. I just don't know if they can replace him, or if they have a next guy up. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they're a type of defense that still starts a 4-3 defensive front. So they have 3 true linebackers, and they throw their third linebacker out when they go into their nickel defense. So it's one of those teams where you look at their defensive line and you think, what is this unit? It's like a bunch of 3-tech, some bigger guys, no true edge rushers anymore ever since they let go of Frank Clark. And you just look at guys like Carlos Dunlap, who can play both defensive tackle and edge. That's their biggest edge rusher, and it's a crazy defense.
True story. Their 2 best players are straight down the pipe: Reed and Wagner. Those are the tone setters for them. Yeah. And then Adams obviously does whatever Adams.
Yeah, does. He's all over he's one of those guys that you can't even call him a safety anymore because he just plays Jamal Adams.
Yeah, cut Carlos Dunlap and put in a undrafted rookie free agent, whatever you want, and Adams can move down there and play for Dunlap's spot.
It's crazy what they can do on their defensive side. It's exciting because they can play guys like Benson Mayowa every year and still be happy with it, but you also just need a true rusher sometimes, and you saw the first half before Dunlap. They didn't have it. So let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers, the last team of the night. A very, very interesting team because last year we saw them devastated by injuries, a team with very big expectations.
Probably the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In terms of high profile.
In almost a 2-week sweep of playing on the New York turf, because it was both the Giants and the Jets. It was crazy, but this is a team that had huge expectations and then obviously underperformed due to all the injuries. They have a bunch of free agents, the biggest ones being their defensive backs. They have Richard Sherman, Jason Verrett, K'Wan Williams, and Jaquisk Tart. I can't remember if his name is Jaquisk or not, but yeah, Tart is his last name. They're all going to be free agents this year. This is a team with only $12 million as far as the cap goes. So a guy like Richard Sherman would eat up almost all of that instantly, and it seems like there's already been talks that he's leaving. So
what's kind of crazy to think about is they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. A lot of times we see a team go all out in terms of their cap to win a Super Bowl, like we said with the Chiefs, who are in a tough situation, and like we see with the Eagles, and like we've seen with the Saints. Mm-hmm. But that's not necessarily the case with the Niners.
Not at all. Very interesting.
It's interesting to see they built with the draft. They traded a guy like Buckner for a first-round pick, clear cap, and they've been
replaced him almost immediately with their draft pick too.
Yeah, making moves at the same time as balancing the cap. Very different approaches. I think for me, the big one that they're going to want to re-sign is Solomon Thomas. I think that's the one for them. That their core identity is just relentless defense, and I think he's a big part of that. I don't know. That's just the guy for me. I think that's the guy that comes back, as well as Kyle Juszczyk, but
yeah. I don't see I agree on Juszczyk for sure. I think they have to bring back one of their corners. Like, you can't lose your your starting three corners.
I see them just drafting
Yeah,
corner.
but you need some sort of vet presence to be like, hey, this
But
is how we play coverage here.
yeah, and they might be
Like,
able to
that
get
is
someone
so
for cheap,
big.
but I think they might be able to get someone to re-sign for cheap, but it won't be Richard Sherman. They knew he
No.
was a rental. He was part of that window they went for,
Yeah,
and
they have other guys like Kendrick Bourne, Jordan Reed, Tevin Coleman on offense, as well as their backup quarterbacks. Both are free agents. CJ Beathard's an unrestricted, and oh my gosh, what's his name? I almost said Nick Offerman, but it's um, my goodness, this is gonna kill me. What's his name? I have to look. I have to look. Nick Mullins. I was like, it's Nick something. I just apparently want to watch Parks and Rec. But he's also going to be a restricted free agent, so they need a
yeah,
backup quarterback too.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them out there, a lot of options for backup
But
quarterback.
I bring that up because they're a team that might be looking to replace their starting quarterback. So a guy that's a vet that thinks that they have a shot at starting, this might be a destination for some sort of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor, you know, Jacoby Brissett, Jameis Winston. You know, this is a team that maybe if they look to move on from Jimmy G or if he continues to be hurt, they probably need to sign a more competent backup quarterback to possibly fill in as a starting player, you know, and lead
I
this
agree.
team.
You know, man, I felt like when Jimmy was playing that the team was just not healthy this year in general.
Yeah.
So it was hard to be like, oh, like these guys sucked.
Yeah.
Like these backups suck, but also it's like, oh, they were throwing to backups
Yeah.
and they're
There
backups.
was the one game, I think it was a primetime game where they had all of their wide receivers either out by injury or COVID
Yeah, that was the
testing.
Packers. That was the Packers game.
And it was just like, who is that? Who is that?
River
Who is that?
River River Craycraft is the answer.
Yeah,
And
they had
and
190 yards
go
and like two
Cougs.
touchdowns.
River Craycraft, go Cougs, baby. Just re-signed with the
Somebody
Niners for a
else.
one-year deal 2 days ago. Look it up, NFL
But
transactions.
yeah, so it's a team that has, you know, they have some defensive things they need to look to fill, cornerback being the most likely because of the amount of guys they have. And then also, you know, they also have a starting tackle that they might need to be re-signing. It seems likely he will in Trent Williams being the tackle. You know, it's one of those things where if you don't resign him, you have a huge hole in your offense that I don't know you can fill and then still call yourself a team with a shot at winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I know Jordan's a big listener. Our good buddy Jordan, Colin and I, he's a big listener of the podcast. So it'll be interesting to hear what he thinks about
Yeah.
what we said about the Niners and who he wants to keep and who he wants to get rid of. And
Also,
what
expect them to get us
motivation.
some sort of change of pace running back because they're a team, a Shanahan team needs a change of pace, and I don't know that Mostert is the change of pace that he would look for.
Mustard on the field. Hope. So real quick before we wrap up this whole entire episode, which has been running long, but we had a lot to cover.
Yeah, it was
I don't
important.
feel
We
like
knew it going in.
I don't feel like we were too slow. I felt like we had a good pace.
We knew going in that we would need to cover each of these divisions for about 15 minutes, and
It's
let's go
1
this.
a.m. Eastern time right now. We have the boy out here shooting this late.
That's all good.
So this little game we're gonna play
Ooh, I'm excited.
with all the Russell Wilson talk
Okay.
about him potentially going places. Name a quarterback or a team situation that you wouldn't make the deal for Russ. Who is like, no, we're okay. We don't need him.
Okay, easy ones off the top of my head. Aaron Rodgers, easy decision right there.
Do you want me to run on a list or do
No,
you
no, no.
want
I'm gonna go off my head. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes. I'm gonna say Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. I'm gonna go with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
you're valuing youth.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm valuing promising youth. I'm gonna go with the Jags, Trevor Lawrence. I think whatever team takes, you know, the other quarterbacks, that's more up for grabs. Trevor Lawrence is a generational talent. Everybody agrees on that, I think, at this point. So I think that's one where it's fine. Let's see. I'm gonna try and think of some other like really obvious ones. Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, is one. Obviously, we've talked about that. But I also think the identity of that team, they need him to be a runner, and I don't think Russ could be a pure runner like Lamar is sometimes. So I think it's
I
a
agree.
different team. As a team situation, I wouldn't do that. Kyler Murray, almost the exact same reason. They look to him to make running plays more than they look to him to make purely as a passer. So that's another one. Okay, now I need you to give me more. Oh, Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the other one.
Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't
agree.
trade him for Josh Allen. All right, give me some other ones.
What about Stafford?
Matthew Stafford. No, I think I would keep Stafford.
Yeah,
The reason
I agree.
reason being, I McVay needs a guy that can throw the ball in a way that Matthew Stafford throws the ball, not in a way that Russell Wilson throws the ball. And I think if you watch Russell Wilson play, I mean, especially the whole talks about the moon ball this year, he is a player that doesn't make those 1, 2, 3 throw type of plays. He's a player that goes 1, 2, 3. Oh crap! I'm about to get sacked by 8 dudes. 7, 8, 9, 44. Throw the ball. Like he
Yeah,
does crazy stuff that you can't have a guy like that do in a McVay offense. I don't know if it would work out.
yeah.
Obviously, he could probably adapt, but would he be Russell Wilson then? Probably not. So, no,
What
I
about
wouldn't.
for Dak?
Dak Prescott, yes, I would if I was the Cowboys make that trade. I think we talked about it, earlier. Like for like, he is one of those players that is almost the exact same. Basically, what you're sacrificing is youth, and I don't know that that's as big of a deal with a guy like Dak, who's 6 years into his NFL career, 5 years
What
into his
about
NFL career.
Daniel Jones?
I would would I be willing to, as the Giants, trade for Daniel Jones for Russ Wilson? Yes.
Obviously, yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I
I,
had to think of the way I was going to word that.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of compensation too. We're obviously leaving out with this, like Daniel Jones with 2 first rounds for Russell Wilson or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're just
Crazy
quickly,
stuff.
yeah. Sam Darnold, yeah. If you're the Jets, you
Easy.
do that.
Yes. Would you
What
give up
about
that second draft pick too? You would have to. Yes, and I
yeah?
would.
What about Kirk Cousins?
If I'm the Minnesota Vikings, yes, I would do that. I think that would be a really interesting place for him to go
I agree.
because I
It's
think
random, but he won't. I mean, it's not
yeah.
gonna happen.
No, that won't happen because the Seahawks would never want to eat such a contract as Kirk Cousins for a quarterback. That's Kirk Cousins. Although I think Kirk Cousins would be a perfect Pete Carroll team quarterback.
I agree. Good play
Yeah,
action quarterback.
yeah.
Then we'll go with Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland
Who
Browns.
I think if I'm the Cleveland Browns, it totally depends on do you believe in Baker Mayfield? And I think the
They
NFL
do.
is so torn as far as Baker Mayfield goes. It's either you just don't or you do, and there is no middle. It almost is non-existent. I am of the I don't believe in him category as of now. I feel like he's too wishy-washy on some of his gameplay sometimes. You are the opposite. I still wouldn't trade Baker Mayfield for Russell
Mm,
Wilson. I think you
mm,
would destroy your team if you did that.
mm. Yeah, hey, I mean, I like the take. I would have given the exact same
Contract
take.
pick wise, I think all of the compensation would ruin the Browns' chances of being a good team for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I don't think it would get them to a Super Bowl this year.
Correct.
Yeah, and then Matt Ryan.
I would be willing to do that if I would trade Matt Ryan for
Yeah,
Russell Wilson.
and so you're mortgaging, some future there.
Yeah, you would have to give away things because Matt Ryan is a great quarterback, and he was a really great quarterback in my opinion. But he is at the end of his career, and he is very expensive. So
I
you
mean,
would,
and we're being honest, every single one of these trades would be Russell Wilson plus name and insert laundry list of picks and compensation. So
yeah,
we're just excuse me,
yeah,
analyzing it from a team perspective.
yeah,
So and then the last two I have here, Drew Brees slash Taysom Hill to the Saints. I know that's one place that
yeah,
Russ said he wanted to go. Jameis is still in there, maybe free agent. Teddy Bridge, I heard reports of him maybe getting traded back. I mean, who knows? What
yeah.
do you think?
I think if the Seahawks decided that their Super Bowl window was over and they just wanted to compete and maybe look for a younger guy to go off of, that is a trade they'd be willing to make. But the Saints don't have that draft pick that could secure that future quarterback. So
Or the cap room to make the trade?
well, yeah, that's also the other thing. I think with the compensation, they would never be able to get it to a level that the Seahawks would be okay with that because Taysom Hill is going to cost money. That offense is still going to be successful enough as a running offense to win them enough games to get them out of a quarterback conversation for a future draft pick. If you want to make a trade that's going to blow your team up, like getting rid of a franchise, all decade quarterback, because he's probably one of the best that will play in the 2010 to 2020 range.
Yeah.
You want to lose and get that next quarterback. You don't want to be okay
Yeah,
because
I
you'll
agree
never
with you.
get there. Yeah.
And the last one I have is Ryan Tannehill. If you're the Titans, does it make sense for you to trade
Oh yeah.
Tannehill plus for Russ?
If I'm the Titans, I would absolutely trade whatever it would take to do Ryan Tannehill plus picks to make that trade because Ryan Tannehill is a good quarterback and he does a lot of things for that offense with his legs that are important to that offense. He extends plays, he makes good throws down the field when he's on the move, and he gets out of the pocket and he'll run for a first down. Russ can do all of those things, probably better than Tannehill. Obviously, Tannehill's a very talented athlete too, so it's questionable, but Russ can do all of those things, and I think the Titans' offensive line would make them a Super Bowl contender almost instantly. Whereas I think right now Tannehill is a Super Bowl capable quarterback, but he's not a Super Bowl making quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I as a Titans fan, I wouldn't want us to do anything. I think
You'd have a 2-year window and you'd be screwed after that. So it doesn't make sense.
I don't think he puts us in the Super Bowl anyway. I think he takes away from Derrick Henry is why I don't think the team is built around Derrick Henry. And I don't think Russell coming in makes us a better team. Like, could you, outside of Corey Davis and AJ Brown and Jonnu, can you name a tight end or a wide receiver on the Titans?
I mean, like Ferkser is a free agent, so I don't know that that's a good place to go. And then you also have Humphreys, who they just released, and Khalif Raymond, who's another free agent.
My point is that they don't have the type of team that Russ would be successful on. Russ is good when he's spreading a shotgun, and the Titans don't necessarily love that. They don't have a team built for that. They have a team built to beat you quick, and for whatever reason, the Titans didn't do that last year. All their games are freaking crazy.
I see what you're saying, but I disagree almost for the exact reason of what you're saying. When did the Seahawks have their Super Bowl window? Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
When that team was defined by Marshawn Lynch being a physical running back and Russell Wilson beating you deep or in the play action.
That team didn't win because of the offense. That team won because of the defense. And the Titans' defense is so bad that they need to use their compensation that they do have to improve their defense.
I have a game for you, just a really quick one, though, because obviously we're at a level of this podcast where we need to end it. Would you rather have Marshawn Lynch prime or Derrick Henry right now?
Derrick Henry right now.
Yeah, no question in my mind. Absolutely. He's an absolute monster. So you say, you look at that. Also, Russell Wilson is nothing but better. They didn't have the offensive weapons when they won that Super Bowl that the Titans have. I think this is a team that could easily compete for a Super Bowl. We saw it 2 years ago when they were in the AFC Championship. And imagine having a Russell Wilson to do things that, Ryan Tannehill's great, but again,
I don't know. I think the Titans,
a team can't put 9 in the box against Russell Wilson.
Let's also be clear. The Titans went 11-5, won their division, literally missed on everything in their offseason. Their first-round pick is literally like the biggest joke in the NFL right now. Isaiah Wilson, Clowney didn't do anything. Vic Beasley didn't do anything. We only had one draft pick playing more than 3 games last year.
We'll talk about them in a couple of weeks.
I know, but I'm saying I don't think Russell would have been the difference. I think it's all the other little moves that make the difference versus getting rid of Tannehill. I don't think that's the difference. But anyway, fun. Yeah. And I have one thing I wanted to follow up on you. Do you think Derek goes for 2K next year? True story.
I don't see why he doesn't. Yeah, absolutely.
Hear me out. We also get all these offensive linemen back.
I agreed. I said he does. I don't see why he wouldn't.
I know.
He has nothing but improved offensive line play in front of him in the future.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Every team knew this year coming in after last year what was coming.
Is he the rushing champion next year?
If he rushes for 2K, of course he will be.
You say that, but imagine having a season full of, Nick Chubb, who was on a pace for 2,000 as well.
Dude, Derrick Henry had 4 games where he rushed for less than 60 yards and still hit 2,000. Just saying.
Nick Chubb missed like 11 games or something like that,
Dude, the craziest thing. Anyway, yeah, we should end this. We should end this.
We should end it.
Just know Derrick Henry's better than everyone ever.
Derrick Henry's incredible. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This has been the 3rd episode of Football Over Family. We appreciate you. We knew this one was going to go long. We had 3 teams to cover. That's just the way it is.
3 divisions to cover.
Or three divisions to cover and all of the news. So we thank you for sticking around and listening. Hope we provided you some sort of football entertainment. If you want to stick around with us in our live feeds, we do Q&A after, and I'll stick around as well. Even though it's late, it's all good. We'll be talking about both the AFC and the NFC North next week. This episode will be being published onto YouTube tomorrow, and you can look for that there if you wanted to catch up on something you might have missed on the show.
And a couple
Gavin?
clips will go up on Instagram. I would like to make a formal apology for both of my things that I was wrong on early in the podcast. Antonio Gibson, I hope you rush for 5K next year. And I forget the other thing I was wrong about.
Drew Lock being drafted 15th overall.
Drew Lock, if he would have drafted 15 overall, would have been a worse pick. I apologize to everyone that's listening.
All right. So all of our handles have been scrolling in the bottom left corner. It's Football Over Family on Instagram. It's Football Over Family on Twitch, and it's Football Over Family on YouTube. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week. To all of our chatters, we'll see you in a second.
And
Thanks
football
for
over
tuning in.
family in real life.
Oh yeah, that too. Bye everyone.
Peace.